Good morning and welcome to Felixstowe TV here at the rejuvenated Gainsborough studio. You would believe that today being Friday we're joined by Eric and we're about to continue the longest recorded This Is Your Life in history. If we come to you, Eric, the last time I think we left with you having moved into Dial House in Seaford. The family was ever growing and expanding, but the bishop wanted his summer residence back. Would that be about right?
No, you've got it wrong. He wasn't a bishop then, he was a monsignor.
Oh, so he was moving up the ladder.
He was moving up the ladder.
But he wanted his summer palace.
But he wanted Dial House back because obviously he was missing his weekend holiday retreat, his holiday home, and being able to send people down there. But of course he didn't have the heart, there was I with this huge family, to do anything about it. So he suddenly came to me one day and he said, I've got a solution for you. He said, your family's getting bigger and bigger. And he said, I know the Duke of Norfolk, and he's got the castle in Arundel, and he's got a property there which had been a convent, but it might be absolutely ideal for you.
Right.
And so I said, well, you know, I'm always open to suggestions. I'm grateful for any help.
So can we say at this stage, the request coming into you to accommodate or look after children that actually needed a home in a family was increasing?
Let me get this right. That we've never ever been in the situation where we've just added to our family.
Right.
You see, I don't agree with this business of children coming and going, in care.
Right.
If every children that came to us we were mummy and daddy to them, and they could stay with us for the rest of their lives. That's what it boils down. Most of them did. But you see, this was why it was so important. After the war, I think I've mentioned this before, but after the war there was this great bubble of, how shall I say, surplus children. Marriages broke up because of men being away, women being unfaithful, and the other way round as well.
Absolutely.
And so there was this enormous number. There were children homes stuffed with children, and they were shipping them off to Australia, Canada, separating families, siblings, which I thought, and my wife thought, was absolutely a terrible thing.
Unacceptable.
And you see, one of the problems was there were plenty of people who would like to adopt them, but you see, they weren't free for adoption, because somewhere in the background they had parents or natural parents, and those natural parents might not have been in contact with them. Some of them did, some of them were very good and they did keep in touch, but a lot of them didn't. They thought of, put that under put it to one side.
Well, it was a different society then.
It was a different society.
Unmarried motherhood was actually a community shame.
It was. If somebody had an illegitimate, it was called an illegitimate child, that sort of was a black thing on everybody. I'm glad things have changed, but it made things very difficult for those children in that time. And I didn't see any reason why they should be penalised. They should have the opportunity of having a family. And although we had a very large family,
ever increasing,
but I'm sure a lot more people would have done things about it. But you see, there wasn't the money as there is now,
and housing was in very short supply.
So
I mean, we'd had quite a lot bombed. And those that hadn't been, the local authority were busy tearing down.
But I deemed it a privilege to have such a large family. I think I was lucky. I'm indebted to those children for having such a happy family. Absolutely.
So where did the children come from?
Well, we just dealt with the Lambeth Council.
Really?
That was because our first encounter was with Lambeth Council, and we stuck with them. In fact, well, let's put it rather the other way. They saw a good thing and they stuck with us. But no, it was a great joy to have a big family, I promise you. I used to say, just to illustrate this point, I used to take them out to Woolworths and go round the shops and and I'd be going round Woolworths with, say, 10 children, and people would come up to me and say, are they all yours? And I'd say, oh yes, and I've got another 10 at home. So it was a great joy. It was a happy time. We were all very happy together. But at any rate, coming back, we just arrived at the Arundel Priory. Well, I hadn't even arrived at Arundel Priory
we're
yet.
going to get you out of Dial House.
Dial House. So
at least
I went to see the Duke of Norfolk, the then Duke of Norfolk,
right.
and you see, he had 3 daughters.
Yes, he did.
And because of that, I think things have changed now, but the succession was in the male line, and so because he was very resentful of the fact that his daughters weren't going to inherit the castle, he built a great house in the grounds, the castle grounds. So he moved his family into there.
Oh, did he?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's very sensible.
Yes,
so he took precautions to cover his children when he died. And I think, I don't know how accurate this is, but because of this, it passed to his nephew. It was going to pass to his nephew.
It would be his brother's son.
I don't know who it was, but he never allowed that nephew to come to Arundel until he actually died.
Did he not?
But you see, this was why they had Park House, where he had his family, his wife and his children,
right.
And the castle was there for, open to the public, and of course was the seat, so to speak.
Right.
But
so the property he was engaged in discussions with you on had been a convent.
Yes, that's right. It had been a convent for 100 years.
Wow.
And it was a large property. And if you go up in Arundel, you go up the hill, there's the castle gates on the right, and what looks like the castle running up the hill. But that isn't the castle, that's the priory. That's our priory. Yes. But nevertheless, I researched the history of it, and I thought when I went round it, my wife took one look at it and said, "We can't cope with that place that big." She was probably very good advice. But anyway, nevertheless, I thought, well, I'm twixt the devil and the deep blue sea.
Yes.
I had to go somewhere, and I thought, well, I'll tackle it. And so I went to see. It had 70 rooms, so it wasn't a small property, and some of the rooms were huge. You've no idea the size of them.
So, if it was a convent, had it been? Did you sort of have the nuns' cells, or were they?
Well,
was it sort of
it was a very old building. It dated back, way back, and of course it had been converted. But the nuns had a lot of small rooms where they were in, and what they did, the main reason the nuns were there, I think, was in Victorian days, as you can imagine, the castle had hundreds of rooms, and they would have been having big house parties and weekends, So obviously, if you've got 300 sets of sheets to wash, you've got to have some facilities. Right. They didn't have modern machinery. So they used the nuns. So they had the nuns there in the convent next to the castle. Really? And they had one huge room which was as big as just one room was as big as three-story houses. Right. And they had it as the laundry where the nuns worked. Right. And they had these hangers right up in the ceiling so they could lower them down, hundreds of them. Right. Huge drying rooms. Right. Where they could dry the clothes off and the bedding off quickly.
I've never heard of a nun's laundry.
No,
it needs research. Somebody,
if you're in
Arundel, get out there and
find out about it.
Yes.
But this was all to the good, and you see, the castle was like a self-contained empire, community. You see, he had his own racing stables, and so he had his racing chamber, and the Duchess was very keen on horses, and so she was, very active in that way.
You did indicate to me that there was a probability that it was nearly a close-run race between you and the jockeys.
Oh,
as to who may have.
Well,
the Duke must have reconsidered.
This is what happened. The Duke had planned to put the jockeys in there. This is why, right. And they'd have just been boarding out really somewhere for to put their heads down.
Indeed.
But as I say, I went to see the Duke of Norfolk. Lovely man. I was very, very fond of him, and we talked it over and we agreed. He charged me a rent, I might say.
Did he?
Oh yes, I didn't get it for nothing.
What, considerable or reasonable?
I can't remember.
I mean, how would you charge for a 70-roomed property
probably
with that history?
In those days the price went down because it was so big that in today it might have gone up.
So was the Monsieur a part of the debate?
No. I went to see the Duke by myself, and but I said to him, I said, there's only one condition I make about my taking it. And I said, you'll have to not mind if I change the name, because it had been known as St. Wilfrid's Convent for 100 years. So obviously all the locality, everybody knew it as St. Wilfrid's Convent.
And St. Wilfrid would want it to continue.
But so he agreed to that very happily. So I did some research on it.
Right.
And I thought came to the appropriate name of Arundel Priory. And I'm pleased to say it's still that name to this day. So
we'll talk about what may be happening there now.
But there was a lovely family, the Duke, and he had 3 gorgeous daughters, and the Duchess was a lovely person. Now, the Duchess, you know Guinness, the brew, she was a Duchess daughter, she from that family.
Oh, right.
So she had,
so
she
the
had
Duke
her own...
obviously knew which way he was going when
well,
he married.
he didn't marry a pauper, let's put it that way.
I'd be very surprised if he did.
Well, he wasn't a pauper. At that time, he owned half of Norfolk.
Did he? Well,
not Norfolk, half of Holborn in London.
I was there on Wednesday. Yeah.
Well, in Holborn.
Yes, big place.
It is a big place.
But
he owned half of it.
So this was in the 50s?
And 50s, early 60s. And the Duchess, of course, was, I used to know their agent, and he used to talk to me about different things. He was saying that the Duchess, she's getting very hard up. She mustn't be so extravagant. She shows you the scale of things. She said she'll have to stop buying horses. She spent £20,000 on one last week. So just show you everything's scale.
It's relative,
but it's
isn't it?
unfortunate. He sold out Holborn, to put his finances on, and I think it was also something to do with his inheritance
coming at
him. But he sold out the Holborn thing, and within 6 months, it was in that time when the prices doubled within 6 months of property, and he sold out, and 6 months later, everything was worth twice as much. And he just did it at the wrong time, which was such a shame, because he was a lovely man.
The best advised people in the land can get it wrong.
Absolutely, yes.
So that even that property bubble wasn't predicted.
It wasn't predicted.
But no, I was there, and it's a very smart area, isn't it?
Yes.
And lots of interest.
I can't remember when it was about, the year, but there was that period when it happened.
Well, for the book, we'll do the research.
You must do it, yes.
I mean, it'll make an interesting insert.
I must mention at this point, just in case people think that this is an ego trip, but I'm doing this really, I'm doing my life, as you know, and we're doing it at great length. I think this is the 12th...
The longest novel on the planet.
I think it must be. It's about the 12th issue at half an hour a time. But the reason is I've got lovely Maureen Dutton, who's an author. She's written 4 books, a singing detective series.
Well, she grilled me on Monday.
Oh, did she?
She left me very bruised.
Did she?
Yes.
Oh, I see, yes.
Gave me a hard time.
She's one of our volunteers, but she's going to write my biography.
Is she?
And so this is going to be the basis for it.
Well, we better get it right, didn't we?
So we better get it right. So we've come to this huge building.
Yep, and you agreed
and I've no money.
That's the thing that I was going to go on.
Yes.
How the hell are you?
And so I thought, well, what am I going to do?
In a dreadful state.
In a dreadful state.
Yes.
So I mentioned this to Monsignor Wheeler. I said, well, I'm going to struggle now because he said, I can lend you some money. Lend, yes, lend. And so I said, well, that's fair enough. And so he lent me a lump sum.
Did he really?
Interest-free, which was
generous.
Generous of him in those. But mind you, he was getting his property back.
Of course he was.
So I'm not being unkind.
And he was indirectly going to help quite a lot of children.
And going to that's right. Yes.
It's good investment.
So he lent me this money, and I had to pay it back on a yearly basis, and over 3 years or 5 years. It wasn't some generous. It was generous without interest, but it was fairly stringent. I still had to find it, which I did, which was one thing. But so what we did, we painted and decorated 3 main rooms in the living part of the house.
Right.
And as soon as they were done, and we put in a cooking range, because there was what was there was a huge, massive old Victorian range.
Oh, right.
It was as big as most people's kitchens.
I was thinking to feed, but it would need to be big, wouldn't it?
In those days when it was, but so we blocked that up It was in the wall. So if they ever undo
Oh,
Arundel Priory, they'll find that old cooking range there.
Worth a fortune
But
now.
it would be actually.
Yes,
It was a
you know,
museum
rare,
piece.
very rare.
But we put in a huge Aga, you know, the big 4-oven Agas,
Oh, right.
and we rearranged the kitchen. So that was all decorated. A living room was decorated, and a sitting room was decorated and done.
Right.
So we had 3 rooms, and we moved in. And
so at this time there were what, 10, 12 of you?
no, there must have been about 10 or 15 children.
The tribe of Eric, really.
Yes, really.
Yeah,
But then
Eric
we ever increasing. You see, I don't know when. I'm very fortunate to have
Yes,
such a big
you're right.
family. But the whole point was we were a very happy family.
Yes.
This is the big thing, and I hope, you know, most of them have gone the right way, and we're still mummy and daddy to them,
Yeah,
which is the lovely thing. We're the lucky ones, I
Yes,
can tell you
you are.
that.
Yeah.
But and they've all missed Marion, who now
I know,
died last year, which
sadly.
was very sad. After 65 years of marriage, it's very sad.
Rare.
But I remember it with great pleasure. This is the thing. We were
Mm.
fortunate to be able to do these things. So the firm that I had in to do these rooms,
Right.
they had a young man working for them,
Hmm.
and I said to him, oh, he came to me, he said, could I come and work for you? I don't know whether he
What,
thought,
full time or?
yes, full time,
Really?
you know.
Okay.
And I said, well, yes, as long as your boss doesn't mind. And the boss was a little bit upset, but he agreed. You know, he saw it was a good cause, I suppose.
Oh, right.
And so I employed this young boy, he was only 15 or 16, and between us, we started on the decoration of this place.
70 rooms.
70.
Well,
and-
down to 67 now. You've
Yes,
done 3.
yes. But it wasn't such a major operation. He was a
Right.
very good lad.
And it was primarily decoration, but you said that
Well, no,
limited electrics.
There
you
was
had,
limited electrics.
gas.
In fact, it amused me because the whole section where this huge room was, which today, by the way, not the laundry room, this is another room,
Oh, right.
that is a theatre. And I bought a coil of 15 amp wire
Oh, right.
and ran a wire from the other side where the electricity was through to this section,
Oh, right.
and we ran all our electricity off it. And
Right.
it crossed my mind the other day when our
Bit
youngsters
thin
went
on
by.
capacity,
It
yeah.
might have been a 30 amp, I
Yeah.
can't remember, but it wasn't very
Yeah,
much.
right.
And I thought, well, I wonder if that's still the only source of
Hopefully,
electricity.
I think that-
Hopefully they found it. But anyway,
you-
coming back to the story,
Right.
we got it going, and of course I had to keep up with my income. So
Yes.
initially, when we first went there, I used to drive quickly back to Dial House,
Right.
and not to Dial House,
Seaford.
to Seaford, and teach, because I was still teaching at the convent and one
Oh,
or two
right.
other places. So until I made some more money to keep the thing
Carry on,
going,
yeah.
and as I said before, it's motivation.
And
I
a bit
was
hand to
lucky.
mouth,
I
really.
was lucky to be able to do it,
True.
and so I started my inventions again. I got 1 or 2 inventions going.
You were still doing photography.
I was still the official photographer for the Theatre Royal in Brighton. That used to bring in an
And that
income.
would do
And
that
I used to
one.
do the postcards, you know,
Oh, you were
for
still doing
Eastbourne,
that for
still doing
hotels?
those for the hotels.
Yeah.
Fortunately, that had come to being a repeat business.
Yes.
Because we had, I can't remember, 200 hotels
Lovely.
buying these postcards.
Really?
So the orders just kept coming in. So we did have income. But I had to increase it. My expenses were
Quite
going
lots.
up all the time.
Yeah.
And so we were a very happy family. But of course, food-wise, we had to economise.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, in fact, the children, I don't think, ever had a roast dinner on a Sunday. We never did. We always used to have Spam. We used to have tins of Spam.
I would
big
have run
tins of
away.
Spam.
I'd
You would
have
have.
I'd have run
Do,
away.
do you know
Yeah.
something?
I know Spam.
Do you know something? With all our family,
There was the Spam
and I
Society.
had the sea training school
Oh,
later on, which we'll come to in due course, where
Yes.
we had some very difficult youngsters and what's it. And we've always had family round us and people and what's it. In all that time, we've never had a child run away.
No,
So,
well,
in
that's
fact,
not bad.
the opposite has taken place.
They've run to you.
They've come to us. But I remember once we went back from Arundel Priory back to the convent. I took the children over for tea or something. I can't remember
right.
what it was.
Uh-huh.
And the Reverend Mother said to me, you know, we've got a young girl here She's 14, I think it was. She's left school. Her parents have abandoned her, and we don't know what to do with her.
Right.
We can't employ her. We can't use her.
No.
And said, what should we do with her? So I said, well, put her in the van. I'll take her back with me. So I went back with an extra child.
Could you imagine
but
that
she
now?
But she did very well, and today she's brilliant, you know.
Excellent.
So happily married,
Yes.
and got their own house, and so
Magic.
you know, I'm still daddy to her.
Yes.
So it's
It worked out.
It worked
so
out.
how you're there? You've got this property. You've done 3 rooms. You and the very obliging young man, it would appear, are rushing around, getting it decorated.
That's
room,
right, yeah.
Room after a time, getting
Yes.
some electrics in there, even if it was only a
It was
15
gas
amp supply.
in the other place. Of
Were
course,
you doing the gas yourself?
No. We put caps on all the, took the gas out, because especially in the children's bedrooms, you don't
Yes,
want.
because it didn't use then. It was it would kill you, wouldn't it?
Well, gas was lethal. Gas,
it was the old
that
gas.
was lethal. That
It
was.
very,
But we had a problem because there was the heating of this huge building, and you know, today it wouldn't be possible what we did. And I looked into the cheapest heat there was available, and I found that there's a heaters for greenhouses. And you won't believe, I don't know whether they still do them even, but they were a huge bowl about this big and that deep on the floor, and that was full of paraffin.
What,
and
just open?
No, it wasn't open. On top of it, it had a big chimney that went up about the height of 5 feet or 6 feet.
Right.
And sort of all with pierced all the way round.
Right.
And what you did, you put a lighted torch in the bottom to light the surface of the paraffin.
Whoops.
The rush of air, you know, because oxygen rises,
Yes.
went up that chimney, and the whole chimney became practically red hot, and absolutely a magnetic source of heat. Absolutely tremendous. You wouldn't believe the amount of heat.
So it's a controlled burn, really.
Well, it is. You had
Yeah.
you could open and shut this hole at the bottom, so stop the
oxygen.
airflow. So you can make it either glow like a red hot poker,
Yeah.
or turn it down a bit to get the.
And you kill it that way, I take it.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
You just shut it down
All right.
if you wanted to shut it. But so we had that in the main hall, in the cloisters actually,
Right.
where it could go in all directions. And you see, this is where people don't realise today with modern houses, we have this air gap between the bricks.
Yes.
But in the olden days, of course, you had a huge thick wall,
Indeed.
so that the water would come in a certain distance, the heat would come in a certain distance from the other
They'd never
side.
meet.
They'd never meet.
No.
But the whole point was, if you could warm the place up, it would keep the warmth.
Oh, it didn't escape out through. I
Well,
see
this
what
is
you're
right. So because we had such huge walls,
saying. Yes.
the whole property from that heat source, we put guards all the way round it,
Well,
obviously.
you need to with lots of kids running
But
around.
it was most efficient and a very economical way of
Really?
heating a house like that.
Yeah.
Fortunately, because of the high ceilings, you know, it also, but it wouldn't be permitted today.
Absolutely
But it
not.
saved our bacon
So
because
you had no heating in individual rooms as such?
no
open fires anymore?
no. We had gas fires in the certain rooms,
Right.
and you know, this is what we inherited from the nuns.
Because I remember the days of, you know, the actual frost was inside the bedroom window as well as outside.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I mean, our generation did not have
Yes,
central. I
yes,
mean,
yes.
these softies of today. I mean, they're heated at every
yes,
point
yes.
their foot goes, don't they?
But we got in touch with the nuns at, you know, who'd been there,
Yes.
and I was fascinated. You're talking about, you know, frost on the windows. It reminded me of a story one of them told me, and you see, it's just very interesting. People think of religious communities as happy places and what's
Right.
it. This nun, she'd been the principal, you know, the head nun. I can't
Mother
remember.
Superior.
Mother Superior. That's the word for it. She'd been the Mother Superior, and she said, you know, she said, I'm so grateful to you. She said, because being I've been here, and she said, I've had to stay here, but now I can get back to Bognor. They had a convent in Bognor, and she said, the thing that I remember, I shall never forget it all my life. She said, I used to lie in my bed, and I'd look out of the window. That's the other thing that reminded me of it.
Yeah.
She said there was an old oak tree there, and she said I used to be terrified always that it was going to crash down and break through my window.
Really?
And that spoilt the whole woman's life. Now, can you imagine that?
No, I can't.
Absolutely unbelievable.
Is it? Yeah, I'd have changed bedrooms.
Well, she couldn't, I suppose. She had the head one's bedroom. We went in the
She'd
same
have
room.
whatever power she wanted.
But it shows you how one
Yes.
person can have a different concept of everything.
Absolutely,
And but I mean, I've had a lot to do with nuns over the years.
Yes.
And I don't know whether it's the same today, but the undercurrent of things and in convents can be terrible.
Oh, I'm sure.
Can be
I'm sure.
terrible.
Because there's not a lot of relief elsewhere, is there?
There isn't.
It's
No.
continuing.
No.
It could be like a little pressure cooker.
No.
So here you are. You had 70 rooms. So
Yeah.
at some point, did you get them all done? Then?
Oh yes, the whole room, the place was decorated from end to end.
Really?
And in fact, as I say, later on, which we'll come to in the course of time,
Fullness of time.
as
If we live long
as my family grew up
Yes.
and you know went off to work or got married or what have you, we had part of it was empty, and wanting to help children and youngsters, I started a sea training school. And
Right.
and so
Why
this
why sea training school?
well, I'll come
you were
to that.
RAF.
I'll
you
come.
You had nothing to do with the sea.
I know.
was-
I'll come to that in a
Oh,
few,
right.
few minutes.
Yes.
But you see, to amuse. This is how it came about.
Right.
I'm just illustrating the
Yes.
size of the place, and it was
Huge.
it was very big. But coming back to why sea training school, it was because to amuse the children, I rented a mooring down on the river.
Oh, on the river, yes. Of
See, there's
course,
the
you got
river
that
down
way,
there.
Yes, very good, yeah,
And
lovely.
it just shows you how things are. There was this huge house there by the mooring,
Right.
and it was up for sale. And I can't remember how much it was up for sale for, but it was about 10,000. So it shows you that it was
Well,
a big
don't even
house.
go there.
In those days,
Yeah.
that was a tremendous
Several
sum.
million now.
So it was absolutely, and they couldn't sell it, of course. So they let me the mooring, and I bought a first of all I bought a small boat for the children. I thought it was good exercise for them,
Yeah.
and they loved it. And then we went bigger, and we got a 25-foot motor cruiser,
Oh, right.
which we called Marion, you know, after my
Yeah,
wife.
absolutely.
And the children had great fun with that. That was a great thing. So it was
glorious.
It was.
Wonderful activity.
But we used to do a tremendous amount with them. We'd always be doing something. I always took them out, and we'd sing and we'd be happy. And it was a very joyful time altogether.
At what point did you get into the youth club business?
Well, obviously, I looked around, and the situation then was very much as it is today. You see, youth clubs used to provide things which the youngsters didn't want. This was the 60s.
Yes.
They wanted loud music, they wanted dancing,
Yes,
they
they
wanted
did.
what? They didn't want to have table tennis and
They did.
chess and darts and what have you.
Yeah.
And so consequently, youth clubs were going on down like this. So I thought, well, we'll have a new type of youth club. So in this big hall, we started our youth club, the Arundel Youth
Right.
Club. And there we had groups, you
Did you
know,
really?
for dances.
So this would have been with the old plucker, what was it, the old tea chest? And
Well,
the
all
old washboard
sorts
and
of
all that
things.
sort of jazz.
And we
Could you do
we
it
had
cheaply, couldn't you?
records as well, you know. But to make it really come to life, I think I must have been one of the first people to do it.
Right.
It's another story altogether. I bought
Well,
this.
we'll
I
come
bought
back to
I
that,
bought
sure.
this projector, and the projector put on the back screen. I built a stage in this room,
Right.
and on the back of it we had all these psychedelic lights and
Oh, the
what's
old-
it's
yes, that
going.
period.
And well,
Yeah.
we were the first
were ahead
people.
of
We
it.
were ahead of it.
Did you patent it?
No, of course
No.
I didn't.
What a shame.
What a shame. But never mind. We had that, and of course the youngsters crowded in, and we had a very successful youth
So
club.
they were coming from Arundel and
all
far and wide
all
for-
of far and wide who used
Yeah.
to came in, and of course this was the days of the mods and rockers,
Oh,
and
they were a very interesting period.
a very interesting
when
period.
The youth split in different directions, to be very smooth or to be very rock.
Well, that's right.
And we
yeah.
had unbelievable running battles at bank holidays at Brighton and Bognor, no doubt.
Absolutely, yes.
I saw a remnant of that about 10 years ago. A stack of mods going all the way up to Yarmouth for a bit of a do.
Oh, really?
Mind you, they were all very smart. The scooters were all absolutely pristine, which wasn't quite as it was in your day and my day.
No.
Eric, we've got to the end of this session.
Yes. Now, is this 12 or 13?
I've stopped counting.
Have you?
And I'm sure the viewer has. I mean, that's if the viewer still may have nodded off by now and gone to sleep. But I think we're going to be moving into a growth in the family. We're going to have a Dutch connection, I believe.
Oh, yes.
And hopefully we'll also see you take over Bognor, which is now Royal Bognor Regis,
of course,
isn't it?
It was Royal Bognor Regis.
Was it Royal then,
It was
was it?
King George
Yes,
way back
he did.
who
But
made
didn't
it.
he? Anyway, we won't argue about Bognor Regis. I've only been there once to have a haircut and a shave. Obviously, it's lasted quite well. And then to go and take some examinations at Chichester College.
Oh, well, there
And
you
that was
go.
a long time ago.
Yeah.
But thank you for being with us today. Look forward to seeing you next Friday, if you can find the time. And failing that, you can always pick us up on the internet because we are there forever and a day. Bye-bye. Have a lovely weekend.